Hi and
Gotcha.
welcome everyone. This is Harshit Bhardwaj. Another episode, fantastic episode of the Gist of It podcast. Today I have somebody really special from all the way from America, Kenneth O'Neal. He's an author. We're going to talk about your book. Kenneth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited, and it's such an honor to meet you.
It's definitely my honor because you come with decades of experience of all kinds. We'll talk about that because there is one specific thing I would like to pick your brains about. But let's start with the book, Kenneth, because I'm a publisher and I'm an author with HarperCollins. So books are my sensitive sweet spot. So tell us about the Circle of Gumption. And
Okay, let me.
July the 7th, it came out. That's the book. Yes, that's the one. Fantastic.
That's the book right there, The Circle of Gumption. And it's talking about going from a transactional life where we are just going through the motions to being intentional and having a transformation within your life. And the importance of the title of this book is the word circle. Circle is like a wedding ring. There's no end, there's no gaps, there's no division in circle. And circle is a symbol of integrity. Integrity is such a great word, but just like the word gumption, a lot of people don't use integrity very much anymore. And when they do, they're talking about a lack of integrity. The big thing about integrity is that the byproduct of integrity is trust. And we must have trust and respect for other people. And that's the lifestyle. And I call it a lifestyle. Gumption is not something that you can put on and off. You and I understand that motivation, we got to get motivated every day. And I always tell people, and I know we're on an international culture here and around the world, but in America, we have a guy that used to sing rock and roll music, okay? His name was James Brown. And then you'll see on my bio, I'm a a certified public accountant. And back when I was working long hours, long days, and then get up early in the morning, I would turn on James Brown. And there's one thing he said, "I feel good." I mean, that was the way he opened up. And so, but that culture and the integrity and living a life of intentionality. So I believe that we should have a plan. We have a plan. There's really, two plans in the world. There's a worldly plan, and then there is let's call it a spiritual plan. But we must be intentional. And that starts when we say, okay, I am a person of integrity. That's a person of gumption, someone that is fair, kind. They recognize that, we're not perfect in any way, but we can be better. And, my mentor, Zig Ziglar, he used to say, I'm good, but I'm getting gooder. It's like he said, I'm getting gooder. Yeah. And so, that's what we need to strive every day. Find little things that we can do to be kind, be considerate of other people. Now, in the book, and this is a movement that I want to create, that we need to have more gumption, people of gumption. Mm. And in the book, there's an outstanding chapter there. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but we had two Supreme Court justices in the United States of America, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia. Mm. Now, they were totally on total opposite sides of the Constitution, the Constitution of the United States of America. But in my imagination, I could see them as brand new law students, law clerks, and they were working with each other. And I don't know if she did it. I don't know if he did it. But one of them started the conversation that said, I like you. I like spending time with you. We've got some things that we enjoy doing together. Now, we're totally opposed to the law and where it's going. But when we're in the Supreme Court, we have things in the way we vote, and that's the way it's going to be. But they ended up being such good friends that New Year's Eve, they would spend time together. They loved to go shopping together. And of course, both were married, and so there's usually probably 4 of them. But they loved the opera, they loved the theater, they loved great wine. And there is actually a picture out that the 2 of them were on an elephant. I think it might have been in India. Maybe you guys already know all about this. Maybe. So, but the whole idea around gumption has to do with effective communication and getting a solid conversation with people where we respond to what they say. We don't react. And the difference between responding, of course, is you and I waiting for 8 or 10 seconds before we say anything. All right. Because, if you react to somebody and your tongue is really sharp and you say something mean and ugly to them, you're not going to get any effective communication out of that. The only way you can keep effective communication going, and we're back now to this circle. Effective communication is like a circle. I start, you're receiving, now you've got the ball and you pass it back, and it goes around and around. So to have the circle of effective communication, we must always be positive. So this is a learned skill that you have to intentionally work at it. Now, I work in drug and rehab, work with people that are having problems with drug and alcohol. And in one of my classes, it's at the Salvation Army, and we actually have a place where people can stay, and they can stay in the program and actually live in the shelter for up to 6 months. And so I had a young lady in there. She was probably in her mid-40s, and she had she was an alcoholic. And of course, under the 12-step program, you must admit that's who I am. I'm an alcoholic. All right. So, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm don't take that out of context. I'm not an alcoholic. And I don't know how I ended up coaching and working with these people, because I love a nice glass of Pinot Noir, maybe for dinner or something, but I've never taken drugs, never smoked a cigarette, never smoked in my life. But anyway, I'm working with these people. And so I was doing this part on creating winning relationships. Well, how do you do it? Of course, the trust and the respect and the communication must be done properly. And so she said, I'm so afraid I get to go home this weekend, but what am I going to do with my husband? I got the feeling that I can communicate with him, especially since we've been talking about proper responding. So and I just told her, I said, you got to be really, really careful in the way you respond. If he does something that upsets you, says something that upsets you, then you need to step back. You need to pause for 8 or 10 seconds and even tell him, I don't know, but keep the conversation going. And I'll not belabor this much, but she, when she came back on Tuesday, she said, it's the greatest weekend I've ever had. She said, we had great communication. We enjoyed being with one another. And that's the answer I want. And because of Scalia and Ginsburg, I think we can get there. Because they had significant differences in the law. And but there's one time it was Ruth's birthday, and so Scalia's walking down the hall at the Supreme Court, and he's got 24 red roses. And another one of the Supreme Court justices says, what are you giving her flowers for her birthday? because you know that she will never vote with you on a 5-4 decision. So Scalia looked at him and he said, you know, there are more important things. Relationships are so important. I mean, I could keep talking, but I see you have questions.
Okay, I've got a few questions lined up from whatever you talked about. Integrity builds trust. How do you regain broken trust? Because I think it's the most difficult thing in the world to regain someone's trust once you've broken it, once you've broken the promise. How do you regain trust back?
Well, it's difficult. It's really difficult. And as you say, trust is so important. And the only way that you can do it is through forgiveness. Forgiveness. And people talk about forgiveness and they say, I've done it. I forgive them, but they say, I'll never forget. I'll never forget. All right. But forgiveness is, you know, and I tell you, I speak from personal experience in this. And in the book, there's a chapter on forgiveness. And it talks about trying, you know, working on and trying to bring back trust and respect. In 2015, my wife of almost 25 years, you know, said, well, you know, she wanted a divorce and that we, you know, she just didn't want to go on. And so she didn't want to have any conversations about it. She didn't want to talk about it or anything. So she had filed. And I was broken. I was devastated. It's probably the worst day of my life. But then I got alone and I started reflecting. I started thinking about what had happened over the years. And it, of course, in my character development, in my spiritual beliefs, I searched for it and I came up with forgiveness. And I think in the book, it says that, you know, you need to forgive yourself first. Well, I'm not sure how biblical that is of forgiving yourself, but it's where you kind of come and you say that, you know, last night at midnight, yesterday passed. Every day we have a new slate that we can start. And that's why I use the word intentionality. We must be intentional about what we're going to do. So in forgiveness, it'd be great if you could approach the person and say, I forgive you. But lots of times, of course, you can't do that. And this idea of forgiveness, we got to give it up. Because see, a lot of times we want to challenge the person. We want to get revenge. We want to hurt them. It's like they are a debtor to us. We owe them this revenge. We want to give it to them. But we can't. We can't do that. We've got to forgive and forget it. And I know a lot of people have told me in my coaching and training that I forgive them, but they're not going to forget. But the forgetting is the part that really gives you the blessing of the forgiveness. And it's going to take time, but you have to, you know, drop it. You got to drop the ball and just move on. But the forgiveness is possible, and forgetting it, I believe, is impossible. I mean, it's possible to forget it. And so the forgiveness.
It's definitely possible. And I like that phrase that of dropping the ball. I follow a specific meditation regime, and so this has been my experience through meditation, is that the only way to move forward in life is to drop the baggage and start afresh. Just like you said, every day is a new slate. So in order to be new, you got to drop everything that has happened and you situate yourself in the present. which is a brand new moment, and you can write anything on it. But to be able to get away from all those negative emotions about any relationship or events, you're gonna have to drop it, forget and forgive. So it's a brilliant
Right.
idea. I'm really glad that you're talking about this in the book.
Yeah.
Tell me about. I do corporate training to help colleagues and employees get on with their bosses. I've done some of those. I'm not a corporate trainer. I just got involved and I talked about this.
Right.
One thing that I learned, which resonates with what you've been talking about: integrity, trust, building trust, the circle of gumption. People in any relationship, specifically professional relationship, but it applies equally to personal relationship, that we are always expecting the other to be the ideal person for us. That's never going to happen, is it? You're never going to get an ideal boss or an ideal wife unless you are that ideal person. So when you become an ideal employee or an ideal spouse, when you are ready, first you will start seeing and looking at everything around you with that lens, and second, you will automatically attract those kind of people. So how does that work? Is that a thing? Because I've applied this to my life and I've told this to everyone. For example, I'll take one more minute. Salespeople going out for physical sales, going to meet a client they've never met, and it's a big account. They are taught to find a way to admire and respect that person, the person they've never met. So you go and find a way, find some information about the client, find a way to respect and admire, truly respect and admire that person. So that when you go and meet that client, it shows, it comes through, that respect, that admiration, all the positive vibes, as opposed to the opposite of it, which for some funny reason happens more than the positive emanation of energy. So how does this work, Kenneth? How do we, by changing ourselves, the world around us changes? How does that work?
Well, I mean, you've hit it on the head right there when you said it. You've got to be the right person. You got to be. And then showing that you are the right person, you've got to do the right things. So if you be and do the right things, you can have everything in life that you want. And all you have to do is to just help and serve enough people to get what they want out of life. That way you get what you want. So it's
That's a very Zig Ziglar thought. I'm a
That's
big,
right. That's
I'm a big
his
Zig Ziglar
main
fan.
thing. Yeah, is that doing and sharing. Now, the way that we do, that I believe this should be done, and it's just outstanding, but we have to show great interest in our person. I mean, you said, find something that the two of you are on the same page, something relevant, something you enjoy. Maybe they like baseball, you like baseball, so you can chat about that and create a relationship. I think that the biggest thing that we have to do is to create the relationship before we try to sell them anything. All right. Now, when you go in and you've never met anybody, and of course, we call this cold calling or, coming to meet people, knocking on their door, and you can do that. And I do a lot of the sales training with people, but we go in there and, as you said, find something. But the biggest thing you have to do is to be a great person with great questions. You've got to clarify. You've got to get them involved in the conversation. So you ask good questions. The biggest thing is that you when you're showing, you've got to show the interest in them, because what that does is show you care. And people don't care what you know until they know you care and you care about them. And so you could go in, and this is a personal experience that I did a number of years ago, was doing some cold calling, just trying to create relationships, meet people. And I walked into this guy's business, and I asked the receptionist, I said, is the owner here? And she said, well, I think so. And I said, may I see him for a couple of minutes? And she said, well, let me check. So he comes out, and I apologize for having no appointment, the first thing. So I apologize. And I said, but I just was so excited to meet you because of what you've done with this business. And so I said, I've only got a couple of minutes, but I wanted to get to know a little bit about you, and then maybe we can get together later. And so I'm talking to him, and we're just having a casual conversation, talking about his business. How did he get started? And I tell him, look, I'm sorry, my 2 minutes is up. Does it make any sense that I come back at 4 o'clock? And he told me, he said, look, you're already here, so why don't you just come on to my office? And Harish, I want to tell you, 3 hours later, that guy asked me, he said, Kenneth, what do you do? Because see, my interest is in creating the relationship.
Yes.
I want to be a friend. To find a friend, you got to be a friend.
Yeah.
Be.
Exactly.
Be and do. All right. And so I have this idea of intentionality, transforming lives. And the whole idea here is to create your legacy. Create your legacy. And it comes down to the environment that you set within your family. What is that atmosphere? I mean, do you say grace over the meals? Do you have meals together? Do you have a date night with your wife? What are the foundational things that you do? You're creating legacy. There's an old story that says a grandfather was sitting on the banks of a river with his 10-year-old grandson. And, and he's baiting the grandson's hook, to fish. And the two little grandchildren later on, they're saying, Grandpa never catches any fish. And when they're about 50 years old, they decide the reason he didn't catch any, he never put any bait on, because he was not fishing for the fish. He's fishing for those lives of those young kids. And so that is legacy. I mean, what are people going to say about us when we're gone? What are they going to say? I mean, right now, today, the greatest legacy on this earth was what Zig Ziglar did. He has a great legacy. And by the way, his son, Tom Ziglar, who's now running the company, he's just doing a terrific job. Great. And he's creating his own legacy. And he'll tell you, I'm no Zig Ziglar.
I love Zig Ziglar as well. I've followed him for a long time. And I've also read Neville Goddard. Have you read Neville Goddard?
No, I haven't. But how do you spell that?
Neville, Neville, Neville Goddard, Goddard. Neville Goddard.
Okay. Is he got? Now, where's he from?
He's, I think he's from somewhere south.
Oh, okay.
But he was much before the time of Zig Ziglar, and he was also a traveling guy who preached and taught people how to use their imagination. The whole law of attraction thing came from him.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Amazing guy. And of course, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
New Age. I think he is also carrying Zig Ziglar's legacy in some ways, and I find a lot of resonance with
Yeah.
what he says and what Zig taught us, and amazing. Okay, so because I'm a publisher and I'm let's talk from the business end of things.
Okay.
How are you going to market this book? How do you plan to get it out there and get people to read it? I think you have published it with Amazon KDP yourself, right?
No, I actually had a publisher out of South Dakota, a guy named Jeremy Brown with Thorn, Throne
Okay.
Publishing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I worked with him. A terrific guy. We met on Zoom, and and so we published it. But I mean, what we're doing right here today, this is part of my marketing, talking to you. So, but on the day that the book was available on Amazon, we did what we called a launch party. In other words, all of my contacts, different people that I knew, I invited them to come to this place that we have here in my hometown in Kerrville called Pint and Plow, and you can have coffee and everything there. So we were there and we were doing Facebook Live. We were contacting people and say, go buy the book. It's up, it's up. And for 24 hours, we gave away the Kindle version. All you had to do is go on, sign, you got it. All right. And then people started buying it. And I think it went to number 2 or number 3 in certain categories. I don't know exactly which ones, but what I've been doing is looking for speaking engagements. Now, remember, as a Zig Ziglar coach and trainer, I have all the content. I'm licensed, I'm certified. I mean, I have I have a Ziglar tattoo on my back. No, I'm only
really? Wow. You're a true Ziglar.
Yeah. But the philosophy of Zig Ziglar, I mean, that's what carries this whole thing. I mean, I dedicated the book to Zig, and so I just, that whole transformed life, I mean, through Ziglar. I mean, that's what carries me all the time. So,
fantastic.
No, I want to get the book out. Like I said, I really want to create a movement of people that have common sense. They have integrity. They have forgiven people, and they're able to go forward with their life. Like I said, let's get rid of all the baggage. Let's get rid of it, and let's go forward. So,
okay.
But that's what I'm doing. And people can buy it on Amazon, or tell them they can buy it.
No, I'm gonna offer you to bring the book to India, and we'll publish it and make it available in paperback in India. And
can I leave tomorrow? I'll come tomorrow.
We're doing a big project with schools in India, school children, and I'm doing a program about effective communication and writing. So writing is not formally taught anywhere in the world to school kids.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm going to change that. I'm on a mission to do that. So your book is a very good piece, very relevant piece that fits in. So I'm going to send you all the details.
And I'd love to, I'd love to connect with you and partner with you. I do some substitute teaching. I teach, Bible school. And I work with pastors in Rwanda. We do a Zoom call. Wow. And so I'm working with those people in Africa. And I went to Africa in 2015, 2016, and it changed my life. It changed my life. So I'd love to partner with you, whatever I can do to help the kids. I mean, it's all about kids. Yes. And what did Ziglar say? It's all about serving others, serving others. Yeah.
That's the primary purpose. That's the reason of my existence. Everything.
Oh, wonderful.
Of course, the business has to be commercially viable. So I have to ensure that the business runs, the bills are paid, the revenues are generated, but not at the cost of integrity. never at the cost of integrity.
Never, right. Yeah.
So
Are you
that's-
familiar with Rabbi Lapin, Lapin, Rabbi Lapin?
I've heard, but I've never read.
Okay. He's very good when he talks about, people we need to make sure that we have the right idea
Yeah.
about money. Okay. Money cannot be our own purpose.
Yes.
And I don't think Lapin said this, but somebody else said, what you need to do is you chase people, don't chase money, because the people, if you treat them properly and show how much you care for them, they will build your business. So that's why it's so important when you're doing your corporate training that those managers, those VPs, they need to understand this is all about caring for people, especially after we've had this pandemic all over the world.
Yep.
We've got lots of problems with mental issues. So we really do need to care for people. Give them a hug, tell them you love them. And I mean, it's just wonderful. Wonderful.
It's so amazing to talk to you, but we gotta finish this in next 5 minutes. I'll just ask you one last little bit. By the way, I'm gonna share with you an author marketing plan that we use for our authors here. So if it can be
Thank you.
useful for you, I'll share the exact Excel that we use, the entire plan for 12 months. So maybe it can be some use to you. And
Thank you.
So one last bit before we go. When is your next book coming, Kenneth?
Well, I told everybody I'm going to get it done in 23. And here's what this book is. The title of this book is going to be Inner Being. So who are you on the inside? Do you pay attention to your well-being? And, down in our heart, you and I talk a great deal about, I got it up here in my head. I understand this and all, but when you can give a great effective speech is once you get it in your heart and you're able to share the being of who you are. And it's so important to create these relationships. I think that the two sides of the political arena in America, if we could kind of do a little bit of compromise and have a discussion where we're not critical, we don't point the finger, we don't blame everybody, and we come together and have an effective conversation. Now, we can still disagree with people, but we can love them still. We can love them, we can care for them because they're humans. The first part of this book, it talks about caring for humankind. There's a parable that talks about being the good Samaritan. What did we do of the genocide in Rwanda in 1994? The world forgot Rwanda. And, but we can do it. We can come together. Benjamin Franklin in America, he talks about a word called moderation. Moderation. He wasn't talking about what you eat, what you drink and stuff. What he's talking about is the moderation that you need to have when you respond to somebody. Do not, be upset and argumentative and be rude.
That's the state of a yogi. Have you heard of yoga? That's the state of the yogi that Krishna talked about.
That's right.
A moderate state. That's the state of the yogi. We'll talk about that. I'll give you a Zoom call sometimes later this week because I love to talk to you about hours and hours. But let's wrap up this show. The book, The Circle of Gumption, is out on Amazon, folks. Go check it out. I'm going to get my Kindle copy today. and we're
Okay.
bringing the book in paperback to India. We'll discuss the details, Kenneth. And
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited. Gosh.
I'm excited that we found each other. It's not a coincidence. I think great things are planned.
That's right. I think this is part of the plan.
Yes.
And I want to really, I appreciate you reaching out so much. I really do. Now, is this podcast, it will be up so my people can watch it?
Yeah, it'll be available on YouTube. Like you have the link of the show, and on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts and other podcast places. So in video, YouTube,
Thank you.
audio only on Spotify and the other places.
Okay. Well, thank you again. You have a blessed day.
Thanks
and
a
I'll
lot,
talk to you
Kenneth.
soon.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.